All righty. Welcome to another episode of the Lockdown Podcast. We are back at semi full strength as opposed to you having to put up with just me and Frederick. We have Tom back. Tim is away. That's okay. The show goes on. So there is a lot to get to today, tonight, whatever time you're viewing this, I guess. But because there's a lot of disgruntled fans, especially at War Games a couple weeks ago. Very, you know, the fans booing, right? And I think they're starting to turn off the mics of the fans because they don't want to know how the fans truly actually view the product. But I, yeah, it's they're having a rough patch, and I know we've said this about 12,400,232 times, but the booking needs to be better, right? And so obviously we're on the road to Saturday Night Main Event. We have, the last time is now tournament stuff going on. But before we get to that, basically Raw kicked off last week with Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley and Io Sky after their absolutely gruesome match at War Games. Literally, it was a one-time thing, and now things are back to what they were. And so basically, they come out. We end up obviously in typical fashion to have a match later in the night with those four, which is the trope of all tropes of how every time they kick off Raw, SmackDown, pretty much anything. And it's the same for every wrestling promotion. It's not creative. It's the recipe that is probably the most used in professional wrestling. Um so we get um another matchup in the last time is now. We had LA Knight ends up defeating Jey Uso, and Jey Uso has an absolute breakdown after the match. He's tossing the prime table. He's absolutely livid, and I'm not mad about it. Good. We don't want to see you, Jey Uso, face John Cena in the last time. We don't. And the fans, yes, they're chipper and cheery and when you come out, but the overall view of Jey Uso right now is um just from the and there's just an extreme amount of dislike on Jey Uso's videos of matches in WWE across social media that people are kind of over Jey Uso.
Yeah,
Um
because every single time he has an important match, it stinks. I mean, like, how many times do we have to keep giving this guy a chance? They had him win the Rumble, fumbled that. Like, even going back to when the Usos had their WrestleMania match, it was garbage. Like, the dude, I mean, maybe they're not putting him in a position with people that'll make him look better than he is. Maybe we don't have that many people on the roster that can do that anymore. Like, I mean, just off the top of my head, like a Bret Hart, or Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth now in the background. Maybe we need some of those guys that can have a good match with a broom and then make the guy look good because other than an entrance, like he just hasn't paid off at all.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because we had talked, you know, quite a long time ago, because we were talking of the whole mentality of Jey Uso being called main event Jey Uso, and a lot of that, and then obviously when he finally gets the opportunity, it was exciting, and when he beats Gunther, which was it was exciting. It was a little whimsical as far as the victory, but whatever, he got his spot, but not long after, he lost it. So it wasn't and I think like we've said a million times too, is that like, a lot of it's booking, a lot of it's, do we need to have these, you know, I guess kind of clean slate kind of matches for certain performers and wrestlers where like they just need like a good win loss, you know, time frame, maybe like a couple of months where they're winning everything and kind of, re-elevates them. But like right now, I mean, we're starting to kind of see very, different reactions to Jey Uso and kind of how we view him, I guess, because he's not so much main event anymore. And I really think that we just need to get the Usos back together as a tag team and just leave it at that. Like, cool, you had your time, much like when Ivar had the break when Eric was injured from the Viking Raiders. It ran its course, but then he came back and they're back together and they're doing fine and they're thriving. So like we gave Jey Uso his time, and now we need to go back to he needs to go back to do what he does best, and that is tag teaming with his brother. And they're not doing that. They're continuing to jab him down our throat. I mean, the the thing at War Games a couple weeks ago when here we are in the middle of the match and you were going up there and doing all this stuff, doing your whole yeet thing up there, and then all of a sudden Brock Lesnar's music hits and everybody changes their tune. And I'm like, it was unnecessary. And you have a War Games match, and then you're trying to take a break from that and give your team down one person because you decided to go up on the top of the cage and do your yeet cap. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Some of those things I wonder how much of that is what they're asking of the performer to do, which doesn't make any damn sense. Like,
Yeah, I mean they did that for Brock.
yeah,
I mean that
yeah.
wasn't necessary. I mean it was cool for Jay, but they did that to set up like, okay, here's Brock Lesnar. Like things are changing in this match. Like it's got a different vibe now.
Hmm.
That wasn't necessarily. I mean, I think that was just a way for them to get there.
Yeah.
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 I think it's poor booking for Jay. I think it's a surefire way to bury someone. And
Yeah.
if you can't bury them like with the win losses, right? Or the quick matches, you overbook him and let the crowd turn on him. And I think that's where a lot of people are.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing is too is that like, Triple H has lived under this mantra since he's taken over to basically listen to the fans. And we've seen it with the whole hashtag we want Cody movement and stuff like that. And that was great that he listened and that happened and everything. But like with Jay, like it's kind of it's not as impactful as when Cody Rhodes was, getting pushed from the fans. But like, yeah, I mean, they kind of have to bury him to maybe have him, be gone for like a month or something and reinvent himself and come back. But I think they need to give that the proper time,
Hmm.
and maybe he starts taking L's, maybe he starts having these matches and he's taking L's, and maybe he supposedly gets hurt or something, and let's say he's gone for a month or something, maybe hurts his knee or something or his back or whatever, and then they give him that time to go away to kind of reinvent and come back. Because they did this exact same thing with Shinsuke, is where they tried the heel thing with Shinsuke and it didn't work, and then he disappeared, and then he came back as the OG Shinsuke, and I think they kind of need to do that in reverse with Jey Uso.
Hmm.
But so Dominic, in typical Dirty Dom fashion at War Games, does uh, win back his Intercontinental Championship from John Cena. Obviously with a crap ton of help, which it's just what it is, guys. It just is what it is. This is what Dirty Dominic Mysterio is about. And I will say though is that John Cena still put up a fight. And he took this match, and obviously like he was gonna lose. It's a foregone conclusion, right? Like his last match wasn't gonna be for anything. And so like we knew he was gonna lose this. And so this only elevates Dominic Mysterio. And I think we've said this before, is that like Dominic is coming into his own. He really, I mean, the Judgment Day are background characters and he's the main character. And then obviously now we have Liv Morgan back. So that makes things interesting just because that's a huge group of people. Like that's like that's 6 people. That's like a faction that's too big to me anyways. Like I don't know, like what do you guys feel about like I mean Judgment Day is now 6 people.
You know what?
Yeah.
Fine. Let's see how big we can get it.
Right.
Some promotions have
NWO
15 people in them. I mean, remember when the NWO had an entire roster?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's. I mean, look at DX. When it was, it's very similar to the McMahon the McMahon Helmsley thing that they did, right? Where it's Triple H and Stephanie. Now it's Liv and Dom, and then they have their gang of misfits behind them that help them
I
out.
mean, but like my thing I'm trying to get to is that like the faction is consistently on TV, and like when you had like DX, there was like side members, but they weren't like they weren't the forefront of DX. The same thing with NWO. It was just kind of the 3, and then like you had periodic people like joining or whatever else, but like they were like in and out of like storylines. It wasn't like the whole group, and so like it's just there's just a lot going on with Judgment Day just because there's 6 people now. And how are they going to like are they going to win gold back, or are they just going to be just the resident bullies on Raw? But I do see at some point in time them facing back off with AJ Styles and Dragon Lee for the titles. Obviously they got to the rematch and lost it. But like their faction doesn't mean anything when you don't have gold. And I know like because Dominic, is a double champion. At one point in time, Liv was a double champion. And so like they used to have this aura of holding gold, much like the bloodline did. But like I feel like this group doesn't it's like like you said, it's a bunch of misfit toys, I guess. And they're not really doing anything within the group other than playing WWE 2K in the clubhouse.
I don't mind them being a faction without gold. I know that it is a sticking point with you, Seth, in the sense that in order to be, call yourself the top, that you need to have gold. But I look back like on the 90s, and there were a lot of times factions didn't have gold, and they were just bullies and jerks, and they were doing it because they know they couldn't get fired, and as long as they didn't cross that line of trying to kill somebody, that it was fine, And I think that with them having 6 people, you know what? Let's see if they can get to 10. Let's see if they can get to 10 by the end of 2026. You know what? I want to see it. I want to see them like snatch up somebody from NXT, and have them be a part of the Judgment Day, like Zarya, like throw Zarya with them. Let the Judgment Day become a faction of women, and then all the women pull an Amazon move and get rid of all the dudes. I mean, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be good television.
I mean, it's, when we've been the thing is that we've been eagerly talking and preying on the downfall of the Judgment Day, and I think maybe that would be kind of a weird angle, is if all of a sudden they just like Dominic leaves and then JD and Finn leave, and then it's
You know what?
you
Yeah.
know, I
Mm.
mean, but it's just I want it so bad to happen,
Right.
and
And
maybe
it,
they're just continuing to lead us down this path, and and much like anything in wrestling is that like we want X, Y, Z, and A, B, and C to happen, but like we don't we want it and we want it right now because we're impatient people, but like and so like the downfall for all intents purposes could like happen at like Royal Rumble or like
mhm.
some random whatever, and so like we're gonna love it when it happens because I feel like it's destined to happen, but like we're just along for the ride, I guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt if Finn separates around Royal Rumble time and they do something where they're in the Royal Rumble match, say at the same time, and one of those that kind of leads to maybe a WrestleMania thing. I don't know what they have planned, obviously. I don't even know if they know what they have planned, but
Right.
um like I wouldn't doubt. I mean, they've been kind of laying these seeds for a while of Finn, and now that Liv's back and Liv and Dom are going to be doing their Liv and Dom things, like
Yeah, and now Finn's even further into the background,
yeah,
and Finn's not a background character, and I think that's one thing we've always kind of agreed on is that it's kind of weird for Finn to be a background character, an NPC as it were, like in the Judgment Day, because Finn is a phenomenal talent, and he's kind of wasting away these years where we feel like we really want to see Finn succeed, and he's just kind of meandering around, I guess. But
I
yeah,
think everybody has that run where it's just like, when is it going to get better for my fave or someone that I really respect, and then all of a sudden it just happens where it's just like, you know what? Finn turns super heel and attacks everybody in the Judgment Day, and or he just goes super face and goes back to NXT to find himself and has another amazing run. Like the
yeah,
last time he did some amazing stuff was when he was in NXT. I mean,
mhm,
that Finn Balor was just on another level, and yeah,
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
yeah,
I think going back to, I mean, we kind of talked about it before the show, but like if we got back to a place where NXT really felt like it did when, guys like Finn and Shinsuke and, DIY and, it really felt like, or Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era, like it really
Mhm.
felt like, you know, its
it,
own thing
and I think that's I
versus
mean,
just a feeder.
yeah, and I mean NXT, honestly, it's still a good product. I mean, it's just, but like I feel like, yeah, like you said, is that like when you had these dominant forces down there, that faction specific, like it was a very different landscape. But so we've had AJ Styles and Dragon Lee have held the tag team gold for a handful of weeks at this point. And obviously they, like I said, they got their, Judgment Day got the rematch, they lost. So, you know, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee have basically kind of like, hey, let's move on to someone else. And so then we get the New Day, which honestly has been bartering for an opportunity at the tag team gold because they've been so somber and depressing because of their loss, and it's kind of a silly gimmick, but um they obviously, New Day loses, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee win, and I don't know if you guys seen like the highlight of it all, which was basically Dragon Lee or AJ Styles putting Kofi or uh Xavier Woods on the rope or whatever, and like hitting the back of him and like having him like bounce off the rope into a Styles Clash. But like
Mhm.
watching that in real time was insane. Like it probably was the best Styles Clash I've ever seen. Um, like I think there's more continuity to Dragon Lee and AJ Styles than people can fathom, I guess, just because AJ has wrestled with luchadors before, so this isn't like some new thing for him to be teamed up or wrestle with or against luchador, and so he's well versed. And so, like, honestly, it was a good match. Like, I mean, wasn't a whole lot of tomfoolery going on. It wasn't really anything like, and I say this always, I always like at least a couple like just clean, good matches, because it's like the outside interference stuff does get a little played out when it starts happening like every match, and you're like, you know. So to have good, clean matches is not not a bad thing. Um, so we get the Vision coming out, which I mean, I don't know if Logan Paul has officially joined the group or he's kind of a lackey at this point with them. But Braun Breaker gave the best promo he's ever given. And basically because he, pinned CM Punk at War Games. And so now he's essentially the number one contender, which basically it ends up being so their match will be at I think it's January 6th, I think it is, at the kickoff for the next season of Netflix or with Raw on Netflix. And so that's going to be insane. And honestly, like, I want Braun Breaker to win. Like, I think he's put in his work and he's put in everything, and his promo skills are insane. His wrestling is insane. And so I think him beating CM Punk is a very likely possibility with how this faction is getting presented. So we have one of the last matches. We have Gunther facing off against Solo Sikoa in the Last Time Is Now tournament, and good match. But obviously Gunther gets the win and basically advances to the next. So it's basically on Friday they have Gunther versus LA Knight to basically see who's going to face John Cena. But so we have the end of the night. We have the match between Rhea Ripley, Io Sky versus Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, ends in a no contest. Go figure, with Judgment Day getting involved. Not really, too surprised by that. Because obviously, like, it was a whole mess, and I feel like somehow we're gonna get a fatal 4-way tag match for the gold, maybe at Saturday Night Main Event, maybe just next week in general. But I think it would be perfectly fine on Saturday Night Main Event, but that's a different card. But so we get to SmackDown, and SmackDown kicks off with the arrival of Drew McIntyre, who is, still suspended, whatever, and here comes Cody Rhodes to like start beating the crap out of Drew in the SUV. Basically ends up Drew finally leaves, Cody goes out, and Cody basically again wants a match with Drew McIntyre, which is gonna happen at the next PLE. That's a shoo-in. Just because you don't build things like this if they're not going to be something. Because WWE does have at least a good track record of really pushing a feud. And like Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes they've been at each other's throats for months, even before War Games. So like, I think they're doing a good job at building this whenever they decide to do the match. So, Ilya Dragunov does another United States Open challenge, and this time we already knew the person because Carmelo Hayes got bamboozled by the Miz last time. And so we get Ilya versus Carmelo Hayes in an honestly got a great match until the small involvement of Tommaso Ciampa, and Ilya obviously doesn't see anything until he sees the replay. And so basically after the match, like Ilya is genuinely pissed about it all. And so I don't know if this is going to be like maybe we'll get him Carmelo Hayes again, or maybe Ilya goes after Tommaso Ciampa. They haven't really said anything in regards to the outcome of that. Maybe we get some answers this Friday. So we have Alexa Bliss facing off against Kairi Sane. Basically on this journey for Alexa and Charlotte to basically get another shot at the tag team titles. And basically Alexa Bliss does win against Kairi Sane, but it ends up in a massive brawl at the end of the show, and we get Lash Legends and Nia Jax coming out, and then the tag team champs come out, and basically everyone lays waste. And so we basically had Nia Jax and Lash Legends left standing. Now, I really, really hope that, again, this is probably going to lead into, a fatal 4-way tag match. It only makes sense. So ever since Jade Cargill has won the champion, she's basically just referring to herself as that bitch. And I feel like they've lost any momentum that she's had or started to have, because there's been a million other storylines that have taken screen time away from Jade Cargill and being the champion. Has a whatever match with Alba Fire, obviously just absolutely destroys her, which is what they want. They want, that's what they're pushing with Jade Cargill, is to be an absolute dominant force. But it's tough that it feels like they've done what they've done many times in the women's division and just kind of fizzle out some of their champions. Because they did that big time with Julia. They did it for a little while with Stephanie Vaquer. So the women's division is kind of, with the exception of the tag team division stuff, like the top champions and the secondary titles are kind of like a very mid at this point, unfortunately. And I'm hoping they do something with that.
Yeah, it might be that season where storylines are kind of like in a lull again, and then they'll start picking back up as soon as we get to the first PLE of the new year. Then we start barreling towards WrestleMania season, and then we'll wind up finishing up any lagging storylines that we have right now, and then we'll move into some new storylines for WrestleMania season. So
yeah, and they do have their lulls. I'm hoping that they do kind of get some good builds going into because you have Royal Rumble, you have Elimination Chamber, and then WrestleMania. So we're on the cusp of being in WrestleMania, on the road to WrestleMania. So, I feel like they need to turn up the heat a little bit. But honestly, obviously with the whole John Cena retirement stuff, obviously things have, kind of come to a dull roar. And then obviously we have AJ Styles retiring next year as well, which I don't think they're going to give him the same kind of thing that they gave to John Cena.
You'd be surprised. I mean, he might have something. They might have something totally different planned for AJ Styles, but it's kind of like a wait and see what they plan on doing with him.
Yeah,
it's really kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be cool to see him do some things with TNA. They have that
Yeah.
relationship. Like,
Yeah.
to do some cool things there, like
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. Give
Yeah,
him.
and
Yeah.
and I mean, I and obviously, like, AJ Styles isn't a merchandise whore like John Cena, so like, I don't think it's going to be like, from that standpoint, I don't think it's going to be that much. I think they might come out with some cool merch though. I think for kind of the last leg of AJ Styles. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for the fantasy booking matches. Whether it's TNA, whether it's NXT or its main roster, like I'm here for it. So whatever they do, I'm good with, and I think AJ Styles will get a proper year to retire. I mean, I don't think they're going to do anything too outlandish. So yeah, we'll wait and see with that. So we get the whole MFTs and Solo Sokoa out and basically, running the same promos as they do, kind of towards the end of what they were saying. Obviously the lights go off. Here comes the Wyatt Six. And I'm okay with the Wyatt Six, even though they're still the tag team champions, and to use them sparingly just because they are more of an attraction than a mainstay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope there's definitely something there for them to do with the MFTs and the Wyatt Six. I think there's a lot of potential there. Just because you have, the MFTs kind of have their role players, much like Gacy and Dexter Loomis. And then you have the two big guys. You got Talatonga, and then you have Eric Rowan, and then you have Uncle Howdy and Solo Sokoa. So I feel like there's something there, and I hope they do something with it. Because I think it's one of those mid card things where it doesn't have to be like over storyline based. Like, just let the group do what the group does.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they definitely do something with this storyline, because like I'm not like, I honestly kind of like the MFTs at this point. They are kind of starting to grow on me, just because I mean they are a talented group. Like, you can't dispute it, because you have Solo that's been on a phenomenal run since he's been in WWE, and when he had his brief stuff in NXT, and then you had his main roster work with the Bloodline, stuff like that. And then he branched off, kind of having Bloodline 2.0 stuff, and now he's continued to add players in the MFTs. So I'm glad they changed the name for one. Like, no more Bloodline 2.0, like all that nonsense. And so like I think it brings something exciting for the undercard, for the mid card. So now
Yeah.
let's get to the controversy of all controversies, and that's, we have the Last Time Is Now final between LA Knight and Gunther, and there's a lot of mixed reviews from the WWE universe as a whole, because it was a good match. Like, it was a great match. Like, I thought it was definitely, one of the better matches we've seen in a while. Obviously Gunther ends up tapping out LA Knight, and so now we get Gunther versus John Cena. And I feel like, on one hand, Gunther seems to be the legend retirer, as it were, in regards to a couple matches he's had over the course of his main roster career. Like, he had the same thing with Goldberg. And so I feel like maybe that's what they're trying to run with. But like, however they booked it though, like if it was LA Knight or Gunther, I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like it's okay. And obviously this is John Cena's retirement tour, so like he already, he had who he wanted, right?
Yeah.
And so if this is what it is, and this is what John Cena wanted in the end, then we're just gonna be happy with that's what he chose. And Gunther's been a champion probably 75 to 80% of the time he's been on the main roster. And so I feel like when you put him up there, one being the longest IC champion at 666 days, and being, a multi-time world heavyweight champion. So I feel like you're putting the greatest of all time versus kind of one of the greatest now. And so I think it's going to be a good match. I think it's going to be very intense. At Saturday Night Main Event this Saturday. Yeah. So I mean, like,
Yeah, I wonder, because there's also been the internet wrestling community's chatter about John Cena very rarely tapping out, and then Gunther, screaming about tapping you out. Maybe they're foreshadowing to the finish or an interesting part in the story for their match to happen. I wonder if that's going to play a big part. You know what? I think I would like to see what they have in store when it comes to what the story in the ring between those two. And I don't think I'm upset with Gunther being, winning that match against LA Knight. I think it's fine for LA Knight to not get that opportunity. Someone wasn't going to do it, and I think he's playing his cards right.
yeah, I
You
just
know,
don't want
yeah.
LA Knight to become the new Drew McIntyre.
I think we're already there if you think about it.
I
But at the
mean,
same time,
LA Knight's just more subtle, but like Drew McIntyre is very forthcoming.
yeah. But we really can't have two faces, working that match. I mean, we could, but we've already had that with AJ Styles versus Cena. So, to have, Cena run it back with LA Knight, I don't think they want to book LA Knight as like the top baby face. So having it be Gunther and having them push Gunther as someone who's incredibly talented in the ring, but has a personality and arrogance that you can't fall in love with. But
it's you love to hate him, and you hate to love
him. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely, it's very kind of one generation versus another generation. Because obviously, like, Gunther's been wrestling for longer than most people, know.
Right.
Just because, he, was from Austria, wrestled in, NXT UK for a while, and then he was in regular NXT, and then he got to push the main roster. So, like, he's been around for a while, and he's, proven his worth.
Right.
And so, I think however it gets played out, I think, Gunther will, let's say, if Gunther wins, right? Like, because Gunther respects the sport, like on the realist level, it's not a gimmick. He legitimately does respect the business, that there's going to be a respect after all it's said and done.
But I think in the storyline, they're definitely going to have no reason for John Cena to get back into the ring. He is really saying in his interviews, I'm never going to wrestle again, blah, blah, blah. I really wanted to do more, but my body just isn't holding up, et cetera, et cetera. So the way that they'll tell it, I think it'll be a sad part. A lot of people want to see their childhood hero win, especially R-Truth. So I think it's not going to go well for John Cena fans. But people that respect professional wrestling and understand, one, it is a sport, two, it is theater, three, these are real people that are throwing themselves, on plywood, night in and night out for our entertainment. There's, you can appreciate that, but
Well,
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
The respect behind the curtain is not always, it
Right.
is different than the respect that we get presented with. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a somber moment, like just because it's the last,
And maybe, you know what? Let's unpack this just for a hot second. Maybe that's the reason why they're choosing it to go on first. Because
well,
if
John Cena wanted to be on first.
how but the outcome is going to be John Cena's not going to win this, right? So by putting it on first and then showcasing the future of WWE, I think that is going to be I think it'll leave a better taste in their mouth when you see other stories start to play out. And John Cena had his last match, and it went 15-20 minutes or whatever have you, and he didn't win. But and it's some people are gonna be sad, some people might even turn off the show, but a lot of people will get to see what John Cena is clamoring about.
Yeah, and so basically the reasoning that John Cena gave is that so he's going to be kicking off the show because he wants the rest of the night to showcase the future. And so I'll go over NXT Deadline a little bit here just to kind of set up the match wise. But so we had Obafemi defeat Ricky Saints to basically gain back his NXT championship. In this match, the winner basically is going to face Cody Rhodes at Saturday night's main event. And basically what John Cena wanted basically to this last day is basically he wants to basically have main roster versus NXT. So pretty much every match after John Cena is going to be the now versus the future. And so we basically so we have John Cena versus Gunther, obviously. We have Cody Rhodes versus Obafemi. We have Bayley versus Sol Ruka, and that's what we have on the card at this juncture. Now, just to again kind of touch on a little bit of NXT Deadline is that so they have these Iron Survivor Challenge matches where two people start out, and then every X amount of like 5 minutes, a new superstar comes in, and basically the people have to basically whoever has the most falls wins. Basically, when you get a fall, you end up in the penalty box for a minute and a half, and then you get back in the ring. And so basically, John Cena picked these. Okay, so John Cena picked Kendall Gray, Kalani Jordan, Sol Ruka, Jordan Grace, and I feel so bad, and Lola Vice. So these are all people that John Cena picked, and this goes back to basically the generational thing and the uprise of superstars because Kendall Gray ends up winning this whole Iron Survivor Challenge match, and she's the Women's Evolve champion. And so this played out basically that now someone from even below NXT is now going to get a championship match for the NXT Women's Championship. And so this is like this whole thing was set up. The same thing with the men's and the women's were both set up by John Cena. And so the men's Iron Survivor was Joe Hendry, was Miles Bourne, Javon Evans, Dion Lennox, and one of the guys from Slate or whatever. I don't know if his first name is Slater, his last name, but and so
Keith?
No, not was it? I don't know what Keith Slater or something. I don't know, but so basically that was the matchup that all the people that John Cena chose into it, and the person that ends up winning, in literally in like last second fashion was Javon Evans. And Javon Evans, if you haven't seen the highlight reel of this guy, like this guy has come to the main roster a couple times. He had a match with like Randy Orton at one point. He's been on a couple different times. He took the United States Open Challenge. He came to that. And so I like Javon Evans is like 20 years old. Like they call him the young OG. Like this guy is ridiculously talented, and it was cool to see him win this Iron Survivor Challenge match. And basically, he goes on to face Obafemi, which is a mountain of a man. And so I'm excited for the future of WWE because not everybody watches NXT. Like I watched religiously every week, and so like there's a lot that's on the way. There's a lot of talent in NXT on the way, and it's going to be, and people that have never seen Obafemi get to see him as Saturday Night Main Event. And this guy is a mountain. So I think this ought to be exciting. I don't think Cody Rhodes is ready for it, honestly. But yeah,
He'll probably
so
have a good match. I mean, Cody Rhodes will let him get some shit in, and I mean, I would be very surprised if he would end up losing. Cody Rhodes, that is, but I think he's always.
It's not far fetched, though.
Hey, anything could happen, and you know what? Like,
like we talked about
I would
beforehand.
love to. Like, I would love for them to get back into. I feel like it was way overdone in the Attitude Era, where it was like, oh, the belt's always changing hands, right? But then we got to this point where now it's like, if it's not WrestleMania or SummerSlam, the belt's not going to change hands, right?
Yeah.
So like that's where we've gotten, and it's like, all right, if you win the belt at WrestleMania, well, you're probably going to have it at least a year, until next WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So
that's been that has definitely been the pattern, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily always going to be the pattern,
right?
So, but yeah,
I mean, and it's well, and the thing is too, isn't it? It's a lot of trial and error too, is because like you've had a lot of wrestlers, men and women that have got their opportunity to hold, whether it was a secondary championship or the top tier championship, and that the definition or like how they would in my mind they define is that like if the crowd is into you, we're gonna keep you. If you're wrestling and the crowd's not into you, like you're not gonna have it as long, and we're gonna move on to the next. And the fans are very vocal, about how they feel about product, in WWE specifically, probably other promotions. Obviously, I think, the opinion, roundup is a gazillion number of people. So, I look forward to see what they're going to do. We still obviously have the masked man whole bit thing that hasn't been really discussed too much. People are pinpointing who it makes sense to be. And I was like, I want like the rumors to kind of stop. I kind of want to just like, I want to find out like authentically and not someone that's like spitting out who it could be. And then when it's that person, they're like, oh, I told you so. Like, I think this is one of those moments where like, I want to be genuinely like surprised when it gets revealed. And I think I'm okay with whatever time frame they want to give to let this masked person like fester, in the ether of the WWE universe, and all the pontification of who it could be or who do and so like I think it's fun. It's something exciting that no one really expected. Because it could be anybody. Like the guy, like the person was average height. They were quick, but that's a lot of people. just
Yeah, I
because
mean,
you
I think
just
who it actually was probably Austin Theory. Like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's who it is in
yeah,
canon, right? Like,
yeah,
they've left
and
it open, and honestly, I wouldn't, like I said in our group chat, I wouldn't doubt if they haven't finalized who they want it to be yet.
right. I mean, yeah, because I mean, there was even stuff like, it's like even saying like John Moxley or something because, he did a curb stomp in AEW and it looks familiar, but I'm like anybody could do anybody's finisher, right? I mean,
Right.
because we've seen stolen finishers for a millennium. So like, to do someone's finisher doesn't mean really anything,
Well, they've
you know.
opened it up to be like, okay, well, this person was trying to make it look like it was Seth Rollins, or
Um,
maybe it actually is Austin Theory, but somebody put him up to it, or they're working together. I mean, they have a lot of avenues that they can go off of it, which I think is cool, and I think I don't know when there's going to be a culmination of that story, but I think they did it to get a lot of buzz. And I think they're really trying to make that beginning of the year push for, first Netflix Raw of 2026. Like, we're gonna,
yeah,
put together an episode to get this year off jumping.
yeah,
Especially since we've talked about, like, the numbers on Netflix aren't necessarily astounding or what
no.
they projected.
Oh yeah. No,
Um,
same thing with ESPN. ESPN is literally pillaging money at this point. Like they're drowning right now. I mean, just with the WWE deal, and not getting a lot of good feedback, um, from basically I would assume just probably the investors or how they think things are getting booked out, stuff like that, which again, I mean, that goes down a whole nother rabbit trail, of the booking aspect. I mean, we could talk freaking for hours about, the not so consistent booking, burying certain wrestlers for no reason. I mean, and so we will just put a pin in this and, we will, see what becomes of this week, obviously leading into Saturday Night Main Event, and we'll discuss next week, our thoughts of, Saturday Night Main Event. Maybe we get some more information about this masked character. Maybe we don't. Maybe they just kind of let it fester. We don't know. So we will wait and see. This is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.